You might have already held this coin in your hand and dismissed it as almost worthless, without realizing it could quietly be one of the most overlooked treasures sitting in South African homes today. And before you move on, if coins like this interest you even a little, it might be worth staying connected, because what you're about to hear could change the way you look at every small coin you own. At first glance, the 2.5 cents Moon South Africa coin doesn't demand attention. It's small, modest, and easily lost among other old coins in a drawer or tin box. Many people remember it as loose change, something that passed through their hands without a second thought. For years, it lived in pockets, jars, and forgotten corners of homes, quietly blending into everyday life. But here's where things begin to shift, because not every coin tells its full story at first glance. Some collectors believe that certain versions of this coin carry subtle differences, details so small that most people would never notice them. And yet, those tiny differences can be the very reason a coin moves from ordinary to quietly valuable. Now imagine this for a moment. A coin you once used to buy something small, now being studied carefully under soft light by collectors who understand its history. That thought alone has made many people go back and search through their old collections. Because in rare situations, something as simple as the year, the minting variation, or even the condition can begin to change everything. Most examples of the 2.5 cents coin still hold only modest value today. Depending on condition, some may sell for a few rand, sometimes slightly more if they are well preserved. Coins that show less wear, with clearer details, tend to attract a bit more attention. But this is where the story starts to deepen. There are collectors who quietly look for coins that appear almost untouched, coins that somehow survive decades without heavy use. These pieces, often described as being in near perfect condition, can begin to move into a completely different category. And if you're wondering whether condition really matters that much, it does more than most people realize. A worn coin might be overlooked, but the same coin, preserved carefully, can suddenly stand out in ways that feel almost surprising. At certain auctions, coins in exceptional condition have been known to reach values far beyond what the average person would expect. But don't assume this is the most surprising part, because it isn't. There's another layer to this coin that many people never hear about. Some collectors believe that limited production runs, unusual minting details, or even small design variations tied to specific years can create hidden demand. These aren't always obvious. In fact, most people would never recognize them without guidance. And that's exactly why these coins continue to slip through everyday hands unnoticed. Think about how many coins have passed through your own life. How many were kept? How many were forgotten? And how many are still sitting somewhere in your home right now? Because the truth is, some of the most valuable discoveries don't come from rare places, they come from familiar ones. Now here's something that tends to surprise people. There have been cases where coins like this, ones that looked completely ordinary, slowly gained attention over time. Not overnight, not suddenly, but gradually, as more collectors began to recognize what made them special. In those situations, values didn't just increase slightly, they climbed step by step. First small amounts, then more noticeable figures, and eventually, numbers that made people stop and look again. And just when you think you understand the full picture, there's still one more layer to uncover. Because not every valuable coin announces itself clearly. Some remain hidden in plain sight, waiting for the right person to notice the right detail. Now imagine this scenario. A collector examining a 2.5 cents coin that appears almost identical to hundreds of others, but something feels different. The surface, the shine, the sharpness of the design, everything seems just a little more refined. That moment of recognition, that quiet realization, is often where value begins to change dramatically. And it's also where many people realize they may have overlooked something important. At certain auctions, and in very rare circumstances, coins that meet specific conditions, the right year, the right preservation, and the right demand, have reached values that feel almost unbelievable when compared to their original use. But even now, we're not at the most surprising part yet. Because in extremely rare and exceptional cases where everything aligns perfectly, condition, rarity, demand, and timing, some collectors believe that coins like this can reach values that go far beyond normal expectations. Not common, not typical, but possible. And in those rare situations, the value has been said to reach as high as $37 million. Now think about that for a moment. A coin once treated as small change, potentially carrying a value that could change someone's life, simply because it was kept, preserved, or even forgotten. Of course, it's important to understand that not every coin will reach such levels. Most will remain modest in value. But the possibility, even if rare, is what keeps collectors searching, checking, and holding on to coins others might ignore. And that brings us back to you. Because somewhere in your home, in an old drawer, a jar, or a box of memories, there may be coins you haven't looked at in years. Coins that have quietly waited unnoticed, while their story slowly grew more interesting over time. So before you overlook another small coin, it might be worth taking a closer look. And if you find yourself curious about what else might be hidden in plain sight, consider staying connected, because there are many more stories like this waiting to be uncovered. You may have already seen this coin, maybe even held it for a few seconds, and then let it slip away, thinking it was nothing more than small change, without realizing you could have been holding something far more valuable than it appeared. And if coins like this even slightly catch your interest, it might be worth keeping an eye on discoveries like these, because sometimes the smallest details carry the biggest surprises. The 2.5 cents Moon South Africa coin doesn't look special at first. It's simple, quiet, almost forgettable. For many people, it was just part of daily life, something used without thought, then tucked away or lost over time. You might even remember seeing one in an old jar or drawer, mixed in with other coins that seem to have no real importance. But here's where things start to change. Some collectors believe that coins like this can hold hidden characteristics, tiny differences that most people never notice. A slight variation in design, a specific year, or even the way the coin was struck. These small details can quietly separate an ordinary coin from one that begins to attract attention. And the surprising part is, many of these coins are still out there, unnoticed. Now think about this for a moment. How many old coins are sitting in your home right now? Coins you haven't looked at in years. Coins that might seem too common to matter. Because in rare situations, those exact coins turn out to be the ones people start searching for later. Most 2.5 cents coins today don't carry high value. Depending on condition, they may sell for a small amount, sometimes just a few rand. And that's exactly why so many people ignore them. But condition changes everything. A coin that looks worn and faded may not attract much interest, but the same coin, if it's well preserved, clean, and sharp in detail, can suddenly stand out. Some collectors quietly look for coins that appear almost untouched by time. And when they find one, the value can begin to rise in ways most people don't expect. But don't assume that's the full story, because there's more to it. There are cases where certain years or minting variations create hidden demand. These aren't always obvious. In fact, most people would never recognize them without careful attention. That's why these coins continue to pass through hands, unnoticed, while collectors keep searching. And here's something worth thinking about. Many valuable coins were never meant to be rare. They became rare over time, simply because fewer well-preserved examples survived. Now imagine a collector carefully examining a 2.5 cents coin, noticing something slightly different, something most people would miss. That quiet moment of discovery is often where the value begins to shift. At certain auctions, coins like these have moved beyond their expected worth. Not instantly, but gradually, as interest builds and the right buyer recognizes the right piece. Values may start small, then climb higher, sometimes reaching levels that feel surprising for such a simple coin. And just when you think you've understood its potential, there's still one final layer. Because in extremely rare and exceptional situations, when a coin has the perfect combination of rarity, condition, and demand, its value can rise far beyond what anyone would normally expect. Not common, not typical, but possible. And in those rare cases, some collectors believe that coins like this have reached values as high as $37 million. It sounds unbelievable, but that's exactly what makes people go back and check their old coins again. Because the truth is, many valuable items aren't discovered in special places. They're found at home, in quiet corners, waiting to be noticed. So before you ignore another small coin, take a closer look. You never really know what might be hiding in plain sight. And sometimes, the smallest discoveries turn out to be the most surprising. And if this made you think twice about the coins around you, it might be worth staying connected, because there are many more hidden stories like this, waiting to be uncovered.